Now I invite Dr. Anjali Sahay, who comes from German University, Pennsylvania, and she will be speaking on giving back to India, investment opportunities and challenges. Dr. Sahay.
Good afternoon, fellow panelists and the esteemed audience over here. I just wanted to start by introducing myself. I was listening to the other two people before me, and I felt that this was, story of our lives, because I am literally the diaspora. I was born and raised in Delhi, but migrated to the United States for my PhD or my doctoral studies, and then got a job in a university and I teach there. So I am literally a diaspora. I am brain drain. Maybe I am brain gain or circulation. I don't know at this point. So we'll start with that. And the topic that I'm researching on is very similar to the previous paper, but in the opposite direction. In what ways has the Indian government engaged with the diaspora in increasing investments in India, and what needs to be done more? So maybe a more informal presentation, but feel free to ask questions at the end. I'll start with my research focus and the three hypothesis statements that I have initially. And just go over the various sections I have in my paper with some initial conclusions, and we'll save the question and answers for the end. So I don't know if you want to turn and sit. Maybe it will be. So a lot of I wanted to also introduce the fact that I already worked on a lot of these topics, and I have one book in 2009, which was about brain drain and brain gain, and I looked at the various ways in which you can tap into the potential of the Indian diaspora in the United States particularly. So this paper is looking at the investment angle, and really we're looking at, with all the jargon on a lot has been done by the diaspora, a lot has been done by the government. I want to look deeper into exactly how much has been done, and you won't get that sense unless you compare with some of the other diasporas. I have a little section on maybe we can compare with the Chinese diaspora and get a sense of really how much has been done and what needs to be done more. So a couple of initial hypotheses I had was the Indian diaspora would most likely be more keen on investment if there was less bureaucracy in India, and also the investment climate would be a little bit more friendly towards the diaspora for the investment part of it. Second, it has to be a win-win situation, because nobody invests, diaspora or otherwise, if there is no profit or benefit to both parties. That's a symbiotic relationship that makes sense. And the third one was also some of the grievances, such as the dual citizenship, which was touched upon in the previous presentation, is a big thing, and just some financial or economic reasons for having that dual citizenship and how it would benefit this whole investment that we're talking about. So I just wanted to give a quick overview. I don't want to get into this, but why would anyone want to invest in India in the 21st century is, literally you have the facts and the figures. It's predicted growth rate 7.5 next year, compared with 3% in the United States. That's huge. And you have India as the 11th or the 10th largest economy in the world, purchasing power parity, 4th largest economy in the world, a very important place in the newly industrialized countries. It's a BRIC member, Brazil, Russia, India, China, although the recent corruption has put Indonesia ahead of India, but still, it's still there. It's a member of G8, G20. Our Prime Minister just returned from attending one of these meetings. So India has a very prominent place in international conferences of these sorts. And there's a lot of trade with the United States and the European Union countries, which is really important for India. India is also re-engaging with its neighboring countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh and Nepal, so there's a lot of intra-regional trade. But what makes India special in the 21st century is its growing population, not just everybody, but the middle classes, and the rising power of the middle classes for its purchasing power. So that makes India a very important place for investment, because you need the infrastructure, you need the coal, you need the mines, you need everything for this growing population. I want to refer this book, India, the Emerging Giant, by Arvind, because this really kind of captures this whole theme really well in this book. There's a lot of focus on the diaspora in the United States in particular, which is, what I look at more, but overall the facts are that there are over 30 million, mentioned 30 million Indian diaspora worldwide in over 130 countries, and the first presenter also mentioned a lot of important facts about the wealth and educational power of the Indian diaspora, in particular the United States. That makes it a very special diaspora. For example, this is the fastest growing diaspora in the United States. It's also the it's the wealthiest diaspora in the United States. Silicon Valley, entrepreneurs, startups, everything. The highest numbers are for Indians. So this makes it a very important diaspora class, not just the United States, but in other developed countries also, to come back and invest in India. So there are a lot of ways in which the diaspora can contribute. The most quantifiable is remittances to India or other kinds of NRI, foreign direct investment. But there are other things such as outsourcing, technology transfer, philanthropy, tourism, which I'm contributing to these days, and political contributions through lobby groups and efforts to improve ties between the two countries, and other kinds of knowledge and attitude and cultural influences. So you have all kinds of contributions. The two I look at most are listing three most important: remittances, portfolio flows, and diaspora FDI. I focus most on the first and the third because they are very striking in their contributions. If you look at remittances to India, it's the first. I mean, there's not much difference between China and India, but still India has been consistently the country with the highest remittances in the world. With the recent Gulf migration, as you pointed out, a lot of the money is coming back to India. Well, this makes us feel that the diaspora is doing a lot for India with all this money coming in. But if you further look at remittances as a percentage of GDP, which I hope my math is correct, puts India at number 6 and not first. So we don't have to look at the numbers literally. We should put it as maybe part of GDP. How much is it contributing? It's less than 4% in the Indian economy. So that's something to work on and see how we can improve this. As a percentage of FDI share, if you look at the total FDI into India, this is from the Reserve Bank website, you find that although the Indian diaspora FDI investments has increased over time, it's still not a dramatic increase. If you look at 2000 to maybe 2010, in the last decade, it only went up from 1.6 billion to 4.7 billion, and that's not equating with the wealth and power of the diaspora that we've been talking about. So there's a disconnect here. And then comparing with China, of course, there is a big and a huge difference between the Indian and the Chinese FDI inflows And there is a lot of controversy around these figures with what the Chinese government publishes, how they round off figures. It might be different. But one of the main reasons for looking at the Chinese figures is they also get a lot of contributions from the Chinese diaspora in Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan, which are huge investment places. A lot of money comes back to China, which is different from India. But even if you put aside all the controversies and close the gap a little bit, it still falls short. And one of the reasons for that is some of the inherent problems in how the diaspora invests in India, or why they are not able to invest in India. One of the facts or reasons why it's not investing as much as Chinese or other diasporas is that the Indians abroad, the fourth wave of migration, are mostly professionals, white collar or blue collar workers, and not as much entrepreneurs, and they're not involved as much with startups or investing in India. So this is a new trend, and you see this happening now, but if you want to look at the trend, it's only happening now, and that's one of the reasons why the numbers are a little different. A lot of it has to do with the economic climate and investment climate in India, which you know by now was vastly different until 1990, and how it all changed post-1990. And even today, with the open market economy in a democratic country, it's actually tougher to get things done than China with its authoritarian way of working things. So even though a lot of Indian sectors are open to foreign direct investment, there is a lot of red tape involved. And this makes the investment a little bit different in China than in India. And until, I would say, 1990, there was not really a friendly climate in India for investment. And people who tried to do this in the 1980s had to sell their shares at whatever value they got and head back, because they really did not get much attention in India. Sam Pitroda was one such entrepreneur who had to go back in the 1980s. Just a quick graph with FDI inflows into the country, with where is it going, in which parts of India, and that's really a segment or a paper on its own, that when you do have investment, which part of India is it going? And really we can see the connections between the diaspora coming from different states in India and them going back to their home states within India and investing back in those states. The only exception to the rule has actually been the state of Gujarat, which, as one would have expected, would have been huge with investments from NRIs and overseas Indians, has actually fallen short. And the current chief minister is trying to tap into this potential and is called on the Gujarati diaspora to invest in Gujarat. But it has been dramatic in Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, as you can see. Speaking here, Delhi, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and Gujarat, which has gone up now a little bit. So a quick look at the role of the Indian government on our first hypothesis, which was what has the Indian government done in recent times. And this is in addition to the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas, or the PBD event held every year, or the awards given to the diaspora. We're talking about the investment climate. And to even quote Rajiv Gandhi, who was the grandson of Nehru, to take off from your quote, I was reminded a dramatic difference from the grandfather to the grandson, Rajiv Gandhi, who said in 1980s, Indians abroad are a bank from which one must make withdrawals from time to time. So obviously he was thinking ahead in the 80s and he wanted to tap into this. And the current Prime Minister and his predecessors have clearly worked towards tapping into the potential of the Indian diaspora. Two kinds of investment projects are currently underway. One that are national priority projects, and one that's wealth management, products and services. One is larger, in scope, one is more customized, and so depending on the size and wealth of the diaspora individuals, you can pick the projects that you want. The national priority projects are long-term, of national importance, and to help in India's development. So obviously you can imagine these include more infrastructure and energy-related projects in India. A lot of these projects require NRIs to help with the funding and contact the relevant institutions to make this happen. The wealth management side is really to work with banks and to customize the products of what they want to invest in. An example, and there are various, I just picked one because the one in Kerala was very vast and it kind of went in every direction that you can possibly think on: energy, education, health, philanthropy, all kinds of things. I mean, I didn't know that there was so much. So you have this website where you can go and look into the work for the ongoing projects and see what work is being done. This is a huge initiative by the Indian government to provide these for the investment. Knowledge experts, live help, 16.5, which is something like online help. What anyone wants, you have an idea, you get the feedback right away. It's like an online customer service help. Responses, questions, redirect queries, you can really get started. And the idea is that they really want you to be involved and they will be aiding you through that. An investment toolkit has a lot of information on investment policies and procedures, so one can get started with these aids and helps. In the state governments of Kerala, Karnataka, Gujarat, Odisha and Punjab are partners in these projects, and so a lot of work has been channelized into these states, and this is where you see a lot of the NRI investments going in. The second hypothesis was it has to be a win-win situation with investments with less restrictions, and that's really how this is going to work in the long run. Again, nobody invests if there is no business opportunity. So to cut this slide into really short, if you look at these are the 5 broad sectors of investment: education, energy and environment, infrastructure, ICT, which is IT-enabled services, and telecommunications. A lot of these have allowed 100% FDI investment, which is a huge factor in trying to help different companies and people to come and invest. Examples of less bureaucracy. One striking example is the increased transparency in the bidding process through the introduction of annual, pre-qualified and e-tendered and public-private partnerships, which makes it really good for anyone wanting to invest from outside of India, because usually the corruption in India stops the bidding process to go to the most qualified bidder as opposed to the one who has local connections. So this is one example. Another example of restriction in the opposite direction, if you want to look at the other example, is in the IT. As we talked about, this is where you have the most potential, but this is where you have the most restrictions as well. So if you look at the restrictions, it kind of goes down, which is, looking from the Indian government's point of view, is not too bad, because the investment has to flow in, the profit has to flow in both directions. So currently these are the restrictions that you have. And the last one, which is really interesting, the political side of it. So what is the Indian government doing to address political grievances of the Indian diaspora? And one such grievance is a dual citizenship. So why is there so much controversy with the dual citizenship process? Well, first of all, to be very clear, India does not recognize dual citizenship. Most countries in the world have dual citizenship. India is one of the few countries that actually does not have dual citizenship. And this is related to, from the Indian government's point of view, As you mentioned, the Nepali diaspora, or maybe Sri Lankan diaspora, once you give them dual citizenship, they also get political rights such as voting in their countries of origin, which dramatically alters the political climate in India. And this is what the Indian government does not want to get into at this point. So dual citizenship is not looming anywhere near. What they have come up with is the overseas Indian card, which is one step in that process, but it's really nothing different, really. So you can enjoy benefits for overseas Indians of India, such as a multi-purpose, multiple entry visa, but NRIs don't get this privilege. And you know that if you have to have business in India, you need to have this restriction pulled up in order to come visit frequently. A quick look at the pros of dual citizenship with respect to investment, why I'm making the argument. The financial advantages: one, you can travel to both countries because of the dual passport. Less time to process any kind of visa and passport paperwork. Business heads, business people wishing to invest in the real estate market of the country, you need to have this. Investment can be done in both countries. You can do investment in both, which is flow of wealth in both directions. Dual citizen is likely to be bilingual, and so there's global business advantages to that. And of course, a cultural exchange of ideas and communities and people goes hand in hand. So these are my initial conclusions, just to reinforce some of the findings. First of all, yes, India is one of the best emerging economies in the world for investment. And so tapping the diaspora is an obvious step in that direction because of their wealth and power and their ties to their homeland, which makes it easier to tap into this community of people. While remittances are highest and FDI lowest, taken together, it's actually sizable. It's not too bad. But as a percentage of the contribution to India's economy, it's not first. It's way down in the list of countries. My prediction is that more and more entrepreneurs of Indian origin, there will be more investment into India once they can clear these hurdles of less bureaucracy and less restrictions. And only if there is a win-win situation for both the diaspora as well as the government. And some political concessions has to be made. For example, when President Obama came to India in 2010, around Diwali time, a lot of promises were made that at the other end, in the United States, the US government will make the immigration process faster for Indians in the United States. And if Indian government purchases defense equipment from the United States. Because that deal did not go through, nothing was done for immigration. So the Indian government, being a strategic trade partner of the United States, should have pushed that concession for Indo-Americans with respect to immigration help. So other kinds of concessions and other political concessions have to be met in general if you want the diaspora to invest in India. I think I will conclude there and take questions after the discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Anjali. Friends.